Hi, I'm Thomas Hunt.
And I'm Nick Parmigiano.
And this is the Bad News Network.
Before we start, I want to address something that has been being asked a lot recently. Where's Nick and Matt? I know, I miss them too. It's hard when you've had something one way for so long. Change can be scary. One day you go to take a bite of your pepperoni pizza, but when you open the box, it's sesame chicken. Not what you expected, but still delicious and filling. You might even get an egg roll.
Even though we aren't a short Italian or a bearded Bostonian for that matter, we care about you as much as they do. We are here to give you the news as honestly as we can. For you and only you. We know we can never fit their shoes, but that's not our goal, and honestly, that's okay, because my shoes are nicer. But when they're gone, we will do our best to be the people that they need us to be.
But to get back to your original question, where are they? Well, that I can't exactly tell you. Because if I did, I'd have to kill you. Which is actually why I don't know, because the person who could have told me didn't want to kill me. I can tell you they're safe, and set out to find the best designs, newest products, and most in-depth news stories they can just for you guys. I can't tell you how many people they've killed, if they've killed anyone in their pursuits, but I know there is nothing they wouldn't do to get the job done. So we'll just assume a lot. They'll be back next week to tell you all the secrets they found across the world.
After more than 100 people were killed, including several children, on Saturday in Myanmar, Washington has announced an immediate suspension of all U.S. trade engagement with Myanmar until the return of a democratically elected government. The killings occurred on Armed Forces Day, which staged a military parade as a show of strength of the Myanmar military. As people went to peacefully protest the event, they were met by live ammunition. These protests have been going on since the military junta claimed power after a landslide win by the party of Aung San Suu Kyi. But Saturday was the deadliest day by far. The UN Security Council has previously condemned the violence in Myanmar, calling for a restoration of its democracy. But they still haven't considered possible sanctions against the military because that would require the support of a country pretty close to Myanmar, China. But a spokesperson for the Chinese foreign military did say violence and bloody clashes do not meet the interests of any party, and suggested that instead of killing all these innocent people, just round them up and put them in camps and strip them of all their rights, which aligns much more closely with China's interests. The other country to be pretty quiet about the violence is Russia. I guess it can be pretty hard to condemn a political violence when you tried to have your opposition poisoned, and then when that didn't work, threw them in prison, where he is now starving. Vladdy is one person I assumed would be on the pro-evil government side of things. Suu Kyi was deposed and arrested by the military after winning the election in Myanmar, and is being held in an undisclosed location. Which, in evil mastermind speak, that means she is tied up in a cave hanging about a pool of sharks with lasers on their heads. The situation in Myanmar doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon. On Monday, the British Foreign Ministry advised its nationalists in Myanmar to leave as soon as possible, citing the significant increase in recent violence. Violence has continued every day since the massacre on Saturday, and with that being the bloodiest day to date, it seems the worst is yet to come. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the people of Myanmar.
The CDC has extended the eviction ban, preventing landlords from evicting tenants who cannot afford to pay their rent due to COVID-19 until June, which is a power I didn't know they had. I was under the impression that the CDC could only tell us about diseases and stuff. This ban will work to help those who have lost their jobs during the pandemic to not worry about losing their homes as well, which sounds great until you zoom out and realize that the tenants aren't the only ones impacted. Without that rent money coming in from the tenants, the landlords are unable to make payments on the mortgage for their rental properties. Within the COVID-19 relief bill passed the other week, there was about $50 billion portion of it going to rent relief, which would help alleviate pressure on those landlords. The only problem is that the tenants must file for the relief with the landlord, not the landlord themselves. This creates an issue when your tenant is an absolute asshole. Only 60% of all single-family rental homeowners receive the necessary paperwork to file for the COVID relief benefits. Some 11% of landlords in the US have already been forced to sell their rental properties as a result of the ban, meaning those families were kicked out of their homes anyway. 27% of tenants have absolutely no confidence in their ability to pay rent in the next month. It's difficult to pay rent with zero income, but it's also difficult to pay your mortgage with zero from your renters. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, but the main takeaway is if your landlord asks you to help file for COVID release forms, you might want to do it. President Biden spoke on the controversial issue of the ban yesterday. He was quoted as saying, "Where am I? What's going on?" Thank you for your comforting words, Mr. President. These are hard times, and that's what we need.
2 steps forward and 1 step back. God damn it, humans. While making the great decision to wear a mask and take protection against COVID-19, people were then making the less responsible decision and throwing that PPE wherever the fuck they want. A recent study has found that PPE used to help save humans is now killing wildlife because, surprise, humans treat this planet like it's a huge trash can. At first, the scientists involved in the study were hopeful that the animals were actually using the PPE correctly to protect themselves. But it turned out that that was extremely hopeful thinking. You know, because they're f***ing animals. Recently, bird nests have been found that were made with N95 masks, gloves, and other random plastics, and scientists are finding sea creatures that have died with their stomachs full of PPE equipment. Scientists from this study are now urging people to use masks that are made for more than a single use. But they are fearing that it may be too late. Seeing as how people still smoke cigarettes and drink diet soda, even though it corrodes their insides, I don't think they are going to change when they see a squirrel choking on a latex glove. I'm sorry, scientists, but we are all lucky that people are still wearing masks at this point. It's either littering and killing the animals, or not wearing a mask at all and killing old people. You decide. Our track record with keeping the world clean isn't great. When I say we, I mean humans. An estimated 1.5 billion masks have entered the ocean since last year. Billions, with a B. Since we are still in the midst of the pandemic, even though many people are getting vaccinated, people are still going to be wearing masks for a while, so this number will most likely grow. But that number will be a small addition to the projected 8 million tons of plastic trash that leaked into the ocean every year. Please, if you can, try and be a good person and throw your mask in the trash. Because next time you're at the beach and you come up for air while trying to impress some babes, you are not going to want to end up with some old lady's used mask in your mouth as you try to gasp for air. In the name of Turtle Tuesday, keep your masks away from the fucking turtles.
This week, while continuing to have a shit ton of women come out with sexual allegations against him, Governor Cuomo signed a bill legalizing marijuana recreationally in New York. This makes New York the 16th state to legalize weed in the United States. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not mad at this decision. I'm a big fan of letting people do what they want as long as they don't infringe on the rights of others. In the whole spectrum of drugs, weed doesn't really seem that bad for you. I mean, having the munchies nonstop has pushed me a lot closer to type 2 diabetes, but at this point it's a risk I'm willing to take. Even though this may seem like a progressive move, we gotta remember who this is coming from. Cuomo has not had many wins lately. Multiple women coming out accusing him of sexual harassment, which has the left calling for him to resign. He is being throttled for how he is handling the pandemic. While he touted how good of a job he was doing, we found out that he hid reports of death in retirement homes. During that time, he also pushed for a $4 million book pitch focusing on how much of a leader he was during the pandemic. To which one of his aides replied, "Bro, are you f***ing high?" Which is probably how he got the idea to legalize weed. In my opinion, this is the good old political rope-a-dope. You let them think they got you on the ropes, then bam, you throw something at them that makes them forget all the shitty things you've done. And you know, weed is a great thing if you want to make people chill out and forget stuff. Along with the legislation comes the expungement of past marijuana-related convictions in New York, which has some of the highest numbers of those crimes. Lawmakers are estimating that the legislation will eventually bring over $300 million annually to the state. I know some people might not agree with the decision, but I'm just glad that, you know, people can do what were we talking about?
On Tuesday, the Biden administration allowed a few members of the media access to a Customs and Border Protection facility in Donna, Texas. The media, who were allowed a tour of the facility, were let in due to a growing pressure on the Biden campaign to show what these border protection facilities actually look like after restricting media coverage and images in them. Democrats were very hard on Trump and how he handled these facilities, but aren't really doing anything to make them any better. Look, you can't give me gravy and tell me it's jelly, because gravy ain't sweet. One of the biggest issues facing many of these facilities is overcrowding. Food and supplies are always limited, but these facilities are constantly taking in more people than they should. In the Donna facility, there are 8 pods, each of which has a 260-person occupancy. The pods are made up of plastic-lined walls, pads to sleep on, and thermal blankets. Tuesday, when the media was let into the facility, it was recorded that one pod held more than 400 unaccompanied male minors. These conditions are terrible, coupled with the fact that COVID is still a thing and many COVID protocols are being overlooked due to the overcrowding. This facility alone had more than 4,000 being housed there, with most being unaccompanied minors. People have differentiating opinions on how a lot of this should be handled, but you have to feel bad for the kids. You were displaced from your parents in a strange place. You were unsure of why you were even here, and now you're packed shoulder to shoulder with strangers for an unknown amount of time. That seems pretty scary for a kid. The Biden administration did not want to follow up the Trump-era policy of expelling unaccompanied immigrant children back to the violent, poverty-stricken area that they came from. Even though they turn away entire families, in some cases adults who are turned away will send their child across the border alone, knowing that the child will be taken in, with the hopes that they will be able to find a relative at a facility. This situation is an absolute clusterfuck, and both administrations did or are doing a terrible job of handling it. I know many of these kids didn't choose this life for themselves, so here's to hoping that they get back some sort of semblance of a normal life, and people stop dropping them off of 15-foot walls into the country.
Before we get to the full-bodied, delicious flavor of Florida Man, Diet Florida Man decided to take a week off of doing crazy shit, sort of, to mark his name down in the books of the Guinness World Records. Being that he was a Florida man, you may think that this was a record that most people could not beat. World record for most meth consumed while still being alive? Or how about the record for most inflatable pool floats in a day? Oh no, I got it. The record for the longest street brawl with police while naked and drunk. None of those? Unfortunately, the answer is a little more boring and a lot less Florida. Ramiro Alanis broke the Guinness World Record of most cinematic productions attended to the same film. That film being Avengers Endgame, which he watched in theaters 191 times in 94 days. Don't get me wrong, Endgame was dope. Lots of cool fighting, momentum build, climax hit, Iron Man's badass, positivity, the end. Pretty standard Marvel movie. For sure not my choice to watch almost 200 times, but Ramiro made the decision a long time ago. This accomplishment may seem insignificant to me, but Ramiro was pumped, tweeting, "I'm officially amazing!" Holding up the world record certificate, "This is priceless," which is confusing because I can give you a quick lowdown on how much that actually cost him. We'll be nice and put the cost of a movie ticket at $12. We'll also assume that he's a psycho and didn't buy anything to drink or eat while he was there. That alone is close to $2,300. But Pokey, that doesn't seem that bad to buy a Guinness World Record. Hold it right there, kids. Endgame is 3 hours long, which means Ramiro spent 573 hours in the movie theater, which is almost 24 days of time. Almost a month! Depending on how much he gets paid, that's a nice little sum of cash that he missed. Opportunity cost, people. Even though Ramiro was excited, he did say that going for the record took a toll on him physically and mentally, saying he lost 16 pounds of muscle and lost time with his family and friends. I guess that's what happens when you're in pursuit of a mediocre prize that no one asked you to go for. While Guinness was there, they also awarded Ramiro the record of being the world's oldest virgin.
Some genius at Johnson & Johnson mixed up the dosages on a couple of doses of the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccines. And when I say a couple, I really mean 15 million. That is not a small f***up. Here's the kicker. There are reports that the senior Biden administration health officials, including some within the White House, know more than 2 weeks ago that this was an issue, that this was going to delay the distribution of the vaccine. Thanks for giving us the heads up, guys. The mix-up happened at Emergent Biosolutions, which is a production facility in the Baltimore, Maryland area. A senior official at the Department of Health and Human Services was quoted saying, "It was no secret that Emergent did not have a deep bench of pharmaceutical manufacturing experts, which is good to know that the experts don't even trust the facilities that we are going to be getting these vaccines from." The same company that almost missed their goal of getting 20 million doses shipped to the US in March is now promising to ship 100 million doses by the end of May. I'm not sure where the strategy of dumping 15 million doses down the drain comes into shipping 100 million doses, but there are probably some over-unders. losing money to make money kind of thing going on that I don't understand. Even though from my view, it just seems like someone good. The Biden administration has now asked Johnson & Johnson to personally watch the facilities to make sure it gets back on track. For a company that promotes no more tears, this news made me cry a lot. I just want to go back to being able to get uncomfortably close to people in the vegetable aisle of the grocery store without wearing a mask, or be able to freely breathe all that hillbilly air circulating around Walmart, or even be able to lick bathroom toilet seats without the fear of catching some virus. I've already got the first dose, so I don't know what happens if I don't get the second soon. Nick has told me personally that he would like to be the person to end me if I do turn into a zombie.
7 years on the run must feel like a really long time. Constantly wearing a plastic mustache nose glass combo disguise while looking over your shoulder, never being able to trust someone, wearing 2 condoms, which you already did, but life is just naturally more risky now that you could get caught at any point. I guess for former mafia fugitive Mark Farron Claude Biart, all the risk wasn't enough. He couldn't just lie low for the rest of his life. He had to push the envelope. After 7 years, I feel like your system would be pretty down pat. Got my fake mustache, got my aviator shades, got my low bill hat. As long as I remember never to look up, I should be good to go. But Mark wasn't satisfied with the quiet life. And with the budding light of social media so close, he decided that he couldn't take the heat and went to the kitchen by starting his own channel on YouTube. To give Mark some credit, his cooking channel was unnamed and he never showed his face, but he had a pretty identifiable tattoo on his hand that authorities had a picture of. It took authorities from over 10 countries and multiple police forces, including Interpol, to arrest Mark. While the authorities were searching for this man, he was putting out videos on YouTube on how to make the best homemade gnocchi. That is some badass stuff if I've ever seen it. I guess you could really say that he was on the lam. This 53-year-old YouTuber, former mafia member, was arrested on Wednesday in the Dominican Republic. It sucks that after 7 years on the run, it's the tattoo of Kermit plowing Miss Piggy that takes you down.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, which feels like years and years ago, science has decided that they were going to do some really cool shit with all this time on its hands. From scientists in Switzerland figuring out how to see into parallel universes, to archaeologists unearthing huge findings of sarcophagi in ancient cities beneath Saqqara, all while creating a vaccine in record time and battling murderous hornets. Goddamn science, you are looking like a snack. This week, science continues to do cool stuff, hopefully long enough for you to peel your eyes away from the next giant boat that gets stuck in a canal. Scientists at NASA are planning for the flight of the Mars Ingenuity helicopter. They are hoping that by this time next week, the helicopter will make the first attempted controlled flight of an aircraft on another planet. The process of deploying the helicopter takes about 6 sol, which is the measure of a day on Mars. 1 sol on Mars is approximately 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 35 seconds long, so just slightly longer than a day on Earth. Each day of the process, the Ingenuity will essentially build on a new part of itself until it is ready to launch. You would think taking an entire week to get ready would result in some pretty impressive stuff, but the flight is expected to take only 30 seconds, in which the Ingenuity will take a couple of pictures and then hopefully land safely on the ground. I'm a little skeptical. I've seen way too many fail videos of dads taking drones to the nuts, or remote control planes dying midair and shattering to pieces once they hit the ground. The flight is the first of anything attempted like it, which is why it has the grip of so many scientists. Some are even equating it to when Orville and Wilbur Wright took their historic first flight in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. But for me, that's really diminishing the accomplishment of the Wright brothers. The scientists at NASA are some of the smartest people on the planet. The Wright brothers are 2 rednecks who took 14 broomsticks and a bedsheet and made a f***ing airplane. That Pilgrim School project weighed over 600 pounds, but still managed to stay in the air for 12 seconds and covered 125 feet. This was with 0 propulsion. No rockets, no fans, just you getting on this terrifying papier-mâché plane while your brother helps throw you off a cliff. NASA, it's been over 100 years. I'm happy for you, but this helicopter should be shooting lasers or being able to turn into a sentient robot.
On Wednesday, 4 people, including 1 child, were killed in a shooting at an office building in Orange, California. A fifth victim was wounded and transported to a local hospital in critical condition. Around 5:30 p.m., officers responded to reports of gunshots. Police arrived on scene while shots were being fired, and an officer-involved shooting followed. The suspect, whose identity has not yet been released, has been taken into custody. The suspect was wounded when they were apprehended, but officers weren't able to tell if the wound was self-inflicted or not. Currently, the details about who the suspect is and why he may have committed this crime are still coming to light, and we will give you those details as we get them. The shooting is the 20th shooting categorized as a mass shooting since the Atlanta area spa attacks 2 weeks ago that left 8 people dead. As this case continues to get investigated, our hearts go out to the families affected, and we hope you find the justice you're looking for.
And finally, in Florida Man news, Florida woman steps to take the headlines when a woman in Florida was pulled out of a storm drain completely naked. This is probably a common occurrence to witness in Florida, along with crackheads riding zoo animals and homeless people screaming about Jesus on the beach. But this story is a little different. Lindsay Kennedy had been reported missing by her boyfriend 3 weeks ago. Apparently, while swimming, Lindsay discovered a random tunnel while swimming in a canal near her boyfriend's house. 2 big pieces of advice. Number 1, don't swim in Florida. Everything is alligators. Number 2, if you do find yourself with the extreme displeasure of being in Florida, definitely don't wade down a random tunnel. What will you find in that tunnel? Only more alligators. Lindsay, who had been missing since March 3rd, somehow survived for 3 weeks in a sewer. No, thank you. Anytime something of mine fell into a storm drain as a kid, I consider it lost forever. Have you seen the movie It? Clowns live down there. It is terrifying. Authorities said Lindsay was covered in dirt and had scraped knees and was unable to stand on her own. They were surprised she was able to survive this long at all, since the tunnel was completely dark, dirty, muddy, and trash constantly was being washed down from the street. I'm not sure what Lindsay was looking for down in that tunnel. Maybe she thought it was a tunnel to Narnia, or maybe a way out of the simulation. Could have been a holographic Charizard card, or even the long-lost Ark of the Covenant. Mystery sparks the child in all of us, so Lindsay, I don't blame you for following adventure. I'm just glad you did, so I didn't have to spend 3 weeks covered in shit and talking to rats. Glad you're okay though. And with that, I'm Thomas Hunt.
And I'm hungry.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and I just gotta tell you, I'm glad this Suez Canal debacle has finally been figured out. I've been waiting weeks to get my Filipino child skull collection through the mail, and it's finally back on schedule. As always, you can get 25% off of your order at rangerup.com by using the code BNN. Also, if you're an OnlyFans fan, you can visit Nick and Matt's OnlyFans at Nick and Matt. Have an excellent weekend.